There is a kind of war that no one speaks of. No sirens, no uniforms, no blood in the streets, but it leaves casualties everywhere. A man can walk through life with his spine straight, his voice calm, his schedule full, while internally he's drowning. This is not the war of weapons. This is the war of silence. A battle waged behind closed lips in the private chambers of the soul. And the most terrifying part, most men don't even know they're losing it. You can see it in their eyes, dimmed, cautious, scanning the room not for opportunity, but for permission. You can hear it in the hesitation before they speak, measuring their truth against what the world will allow. You can feel it in the way they move, controlled, polite, unthreatening. These are not men in power. These are men in exile. Exiled not by tyrants or kings, but by culture that told them, your strength is dangerous, your clarity is aggression, your silence is weakness, your passion is toxic. This is the slow death of masculinity. Not the caricature of the one-dimensional brute, but the true masculine. The disciplined fire, the inner mountain, the calm protector who knows when to strike and when to endure. We've anesthetized him. We've drugged him with comfort, pacified him with distraction, neutered him with shame. And in his place stands the modern man, agreeable, exhausted, addicted to approval. This battle isn't fought on battlefields. It's fought in boardrooms, in bedrooms, in the mirror at 2 a.m. It's fought in the quiet decision to say nothing when everything in you is screaming. It's fought when you trade truth for peace, freedom for acceptance, power for performance. And you can tell yourself it's noble. You can tell yourself you're just being mature, sensitive, progressive, but you know the truth. Deep down, in that place you try not to visit too often, you know. You betrayed something ancient, something sacred, something that once made you feel alive. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of you society refuses to bless. The instincts, the fire, the rage, the lust, the hunger, the ambition, the wildness. All the energies that civilization demanded you bury so you could be a good man. But here's the secret. Jung tried to teach us. Whatever you do not integrate will eventually dominate you. And that's what's happening. Across the world, millions of men are being dominated by what they refuse to confront. Passive on the outside, chaotic within, smiling, nodding, performing, while internally, something ancient is roaring to be remembered. You were not born to sit quietly in meetings pretending to care. You were not born to scroll endlessly, to chase likes like coins in a slot machine, to flirt with spiritual death just to seem nice. You were born to carry weight, to stand firm in storms, to say what must be said even when it trembles in your throat. You were born to look at your reflection and not apologize for the fire in your eyes. But they've stolen that from you, haven't they? They didn't do it with chains. They did it with praise. Good boy. Such a nice guy. He never makes trouble. And in your hunger to belong, you became smaller, gentler, safer. But safe is a prison, and your soul knows it. This is not about dominance. This is not about being feared. It's about recovering what was exiled. The spine, the boundary, the voice, the truth. It's about becoming the kind of man who no longer needs permission to exist fully. The kind of man who understands that peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of power under control. And control is not repression. Control is mastery. Control is knowing your fire so well that no one can use it against you. You want to know why you're tired all the time? Why everything feels numb, muted, gray? It's not your job, it's not your relationship, it's not the economy, it's the war you're avoiding. The war within. The silent battle you keep losing because you're afraid to admit it's even happening. But what if you stopped pretending? What if you faced it? What if you turned inward and met the part of yourself you've been hiding from? The anger, the fear, the desire, the chaos. What if you stopped apologizing for being a man and started honoring it? Not the wounded boy who lashes out, but the awakened man who channels. Not the coward who hides behind silence, but the warrior who speaks with clarity. Not the addict who numbs, but the king who holds. The world does not need more men who fit in. It needs men who remember who they are. Men who refuse to be tamed by a culture terrified of their depth. Men who know that to lead, they must first descend into shadow, into pain, into truth. Only then can they reason not as puppets, but as sovereigns. And maybe that's you, maybe that's why you're still listening. Because a part of you buried under years of pretending is stirring. He's waking up, and he's not interested in playing it safe anymore. He is the part of you that remembers the wild. The part that doesn't ask, doesn't negotiate, doesn't submit. Not because he is cruel, but because he is clear. He does not live for applause. He lives for alignment. And alignment is not always pretty. It is not always nice, but it is always real. That's the price of authenticity. It demands your illusions. It strips away every mask you crafted to survive, every soft lie you told yourself to be accepted, every watered-down version of your truth offered up like a peace treaty to a world that never intended to understand you. This man within you is done with that game. You think discipline is the hard part? No, the real pain is pretending. The real burden is smiling when you're angry, laughing when you're hollow, nodding when your soul is screaming no. And every time you do it, you drift further from your core. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not alive, performing but not embodied. And eventually the mask becomes your identity. You don't even know who you are without it. That's the tragedy of the modern man. He's remembered by the world but forgotten by himself. But there is a way back. Not through books, not through podcasts, not through intellectual masturbation, through initiation, through fire, through silence. So honest, it burns the lies off your tongue. You must be willing to stand naked before your truth, to stare down your shadows without flinching, to hold your pain like a sacred offering instead of a secret shame. Because what you've been calling broken might actually be unlived. The rage you suppress, it's not just anger, it's misdirected vitality. It's your life force trying to remind you that you are not meant to tolerate what you've been tolerating, that your boundaries are not betrayals, that your clarity is not cruelty, that your NO is holy. But they taught you to smile, to compromise, to self-soothe with distractions, to stay soft, even when life is demanding you rise with iron in your spine. And the more you shrink, the more the world steps on you. Not because it's evil, but because nature respects only what respects itself. If you do not value your time, others will waste it. If you do not command your space, others will fill it. If you do not speak your truth, others will write your story. This is not cynicism. This is biology. This is spiritual law. The man who forgets his worth invites a life that reflects that amnesia. But here's the sacred paradox. You don't need to become powerful. You already are. You've just been trained to look everywhere but within. Trained to chase status, to collect symbols, to polish the shell while the soul starves. Trained to equate busyness with significance and obedience with goodness. But there's a deeper code. And it lives beneath the noise, beneath the scrolling, beneath the pleasing, beneath the soft tyranny of expectations. There is a version of you that is not afraid, not because he's reckless, but because he remembers she's the storm, not the leaf. He does not shrink in the face of chaos. He embodies it. He rides it. He uses it. Like a blade forged in fire, not decoration, but direction. He does not need to dominate others because he has mastered himself. And that is the highest form of power. Not the ability to control the world, but the ability to not be controlled by it. But to find him, you must be willing to lose who you've been. The image, the persona, the the good boy. You must walk into the fire of self-confrontation and let it burn away the parts of you that were never truly yours. That's the real initiation, not into manhood, but into authenticity, into freedom, into sovereignty. And once you've tasted it, even for a moment, you can never go back. You will walk differently, speak differently, look people in the eyes and not flinch. You will no longer seek permission. You will give yourself command. You will not perform your truth. You will embody it. You will not beg for peace. You will become it, not through silence, but through presence, through full, unapologetic, sacred presence. And people will feel it. Some will fear it. Some will be drawn to it. But none will ignore it. Because real presence cannot be faked. It cannot be imitated. It comes only from within, from the depths of a man who faced himself and did not turn away, who went to war with his own shadows and returned with clarity, not shame. This is the silent battle. And it will not end with medals or applause. It ends when you remember, when you awaken, when you choose to stop losing by default and start winning by design. Not by beating others, but by no longer betraying yourself. Winning in this war does not look like victory parades or applause from the crowd. It looks like peace. But not the kind of peace sold in meditation apps or Instagram quotes. No, this is the ancient peace. The peace of a man who has made peace with his chaos. The kind of peace you find in still waters that once knew storms. The peace of a man who no longer negotiates with himself, who no longer pretends, who no longer needs to be liked to feel alive, because he finally sees himself. And seeing himself, he reclaims what was stolen not by force, but by forgetting. Do you remember what it felt like before the world got to you? Before your back learned to hunch beneath the weight of expectations? Before your voice softened into diplomacy, even when your heart wanted to roar? That version of you still exists. Not as a memory, but as a potential. A dormant fire, a buried temple. He's not gone. He's just waiting. Waiting for you to turn inward, dig past the noise and call him forward. And when you down, you stop outsourcing your authority and start walking with the full gravity of your being, everything changes. You begin to move differently through life. You no longer flinch when someone disrespects you. You don't bark, you don't posture, you simply don't absorb it, because you know who you are. And when a man knows who he is, nothing external can shake him. Insults bounce off, manipulation fails, approval loses its flavor. Why? Because the war is no longer out there. It was never out there. It was always internal. It was the war between who you are and who you were told to be. And once that war ends, you don't just become powerful, you become untouchable. Untouchable, not because nothing hurts you, but because nothing owns you. You can feel pain without becoming it. You can be challenged without collapsing. You can be rejected without losing your worth. This is not detachment, it's depth. It's what happens when a man dives so deep into his own psyche that he no longer needs the surface to validate him. He becomes the source, not dependent, but centered. Not loud, but undeniable. And from that place, your relationships change, your work changes, your silence changes, because it's no longer the silence of fear, it's the silence of gravity. Of a man so rooted, so internally rich, that he doesn't need noise to fill the space. He becomes the space, and others feel it. They sense the stillness in your gaze, the unshakable presence in your posture, and they either rise to meet you or they flee. Either way, you do not chase, you do not explain, you do not shrink, because you have nothing to prove. Not anymore. This is what the modern world doesn't teach. It teaches consumption, not contemplation. Reaction, not reflection. Performance, not presence. It builds men who are efficient, but empty. Functional, but fractured. Always doing, never being. And eventually, that cracks the soul. Because no matter how much you produce, if you don't know yourself, you will always feel poor, always feel like something's missing, always searching, scrolling, numbing, distracting, when what you're really craving is yourself. But here's the hard truth. No one can give you back your soul. No one can fight this war for you. No one can breathe life into the part of you that you've neglected. That's your work, your rite of passage, your sacred responsibility. And until you take it seriously, nothing will feel whole. Not the money, not the relationship, not the body, because all of those are just mirrors. And if the man in the reflection is still asleep, still afraid, is still performing, then the life around him will reflect that hollowness back. This is not a call to arms. This is a call to awakening, to remembrance, to initiation. The world needs men who are not afraid to know themselves, who are not afraid to feel deeply, to speak boldly, to walk alone when necessary. Men who are no longer slaves to approval or puppets of performance. Men who have faced their own abyss and emerge not broken but reborn. And that rebirth, it begins the moment you stop running from your pain, from your power, from your truth. It begins when you stop asking, who do they want me to be? And start asking, who have I always been before the world told me otherwise? Because the moment you remember that, truly remember that you no longer live life from the outside in, you live it from the inside out. And that, my friend, is when you stop losing. That is when the silent battle ends. Not with noise, but with a man standing still, unshaken and utterly himself. And when you become that man, when you finally reclaim what was buried beneath layers of performance and passive compliance, the world begins to reconfigure itself around you. Not because it has changed, but because your perception has. You no longer walk into rooms trying to be accepted. You walk in knowing that you belong anywhere your presence is required. And where it isn't, you don't force it. That's the quiet strength most men never touch. The ability to leave without needing closure, to say no without guilt, to walk alone without fear. That strength doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from wholeness, from finally seeing your soul as the compass, not the world's opinion. But this journey isn't a straight line. There will be moments where you feel like slipping back into comfort, where silence feels safer than truth, where your old habits knock on the door dressed in nostalgia. But hear this. The man you used to be is not your enemy, he's your unfinished chapter. He got you this far. He kept you alive. He played the role you needed at the time. But the role has expired. And now you owe him something greater, not a continuation, but a conclusion. Not to resent him, but to release him. Let him rest, so you can rise. You will feel grief in this process, real grief, not just for what you lost, but for what you never allowed yourself to claim, the dreams you buried, the instincts you denied, the truth you watered down to keep the peace. That grief is sacred. It's the funeral of your former self, and every man must attend it, not once, but often. Because becoming who you are meant to be is not a single act, it's a continual dying to who you are not. It's shedding, peeling, remembering, over and over, until nothing remains but essence. And from that essence you move differently. You don't chase purpose, you embody it. You don't seek meaning, you become it. Because when you're rooted in your truth, even your silence speaks volumes. Even your stillness carries weight. You stop being a man in search of identity and start becoming a man who reminds others of theirs. Your life becomes a mirror that says, this is what freedom looks like. Not the kind sold in ads or measured by followers, but the rare kind, the quiet kind, the kind that can't be bought, only earned. And how do you earn it? By doing the work no one sees, by having the conversations with yourself that you've avoided for years, by facing the parts of your psyche that still live in boyhood, still reactive, still approval hungry, still afraid of being disliked. You bring those parts home. not to shame them, but to lead them. That's what the inner father does. He doesn't yell. He doesn't punish. He stands. He listens. He holds. And slowly, the chaos inside begins to trust itself again. The scattered fragments begin to align, and what emerges is not perfection, but integrity. Integrity is not about being flawless. It's about being undivided. No more split between what you feel and what you say. No more gap between what you value and what you tolerate. No more pretending to be small so others feel big. You become one. And from that oneness, every decision becomes simpler. Not easier, but clearer. Because clarity is the reward of truth. And truth is the reward of courage. Courage to confront, courage to release, courage to stand alone. But let me tell you something they don't teach you in schools, in media, in polished circles of surface talk. Real freedom is lonely. Not because no one loves you, but because few are willing to go where you're going. Most people cling to comfort like a raft in a storm. They would rather drown slowly than risk the unknown, but not you. If you're still here, still listening, still breathing, through these words, it means something in you is ready, ready to stop playing roles, ready to stop shrinking, ready to meet the man inside you who has never been afraid of the dark. Because he knows the dark is not your enemy, it's your origin, the womb of power, the place where truth incubates, and only the brave descend into it not to escape, but to return reborn. That is the path of the sovereign. The man who is no longer ruled by fear, by shame, by the ghost of who he was told to be. He has walked through the valley of doubt and come out with fire in his bones. Fire not to destroy, but to illuminate, to light a path for others, not through lectures, through example. And that's what this world is starving for, not more advice, but more embodied men. Men who no longer flinch from their own depth. Men who can hold space for chaos without becoming it. Men who do not need applause to walk in alignment. This is your invitation to become one of them. To stop leaking your power in 1,000 directions. To reclaim your voice. To rebuild your temple. To become a man whose silence is not submission, but sovereignty. A man whose every breath says, I know who I am. So now we arrive at the final edge, the precipice between who you've been and who you were always meant to be. This is not the end. This is the awakening. And not the loud kind, not the cinematic moment drenched in drama, no. This is deeper, quieter, like the first breath after nearly drowning, like remembering your own name after years of being called everything else. It's the moment you no longer beg the world to validate your existence because you've become your own permission. You see, no, it was never about anger or silence or strength alone. It was about reclaiming the right to feel deeply without being devoured, to speak your truth without performing, to exist without shrinking. That is the revolution. That is the masculine rebirth, not louder, not tougher, just more real, more rooted, more sovereign. Because when a man reclaims his inner authority, the entire world bends around him, not out of fear, but out of recognition, as if life itself says, ah, there you are, finally. And now it's your turn, not to talk about it, not to wait for signs, but to decide, to step into that storm you've been avoiding, not to be destroyed by it, but to remember that you are the storm. You are not here to survive your life. You are here to inhabit it fully, fiercely, freely. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you your excuses, your comfort, your illusions. But what you gain in return is yourself. So take it, all of it. The rage, the calm, the sorrow, the fire, the vision. Let it shape you. Let it cleanse you. Let it awaken you. Because when you finally stop running, when you plant your feet, straighten your spine, and say, this is who I am, the silent battle ends. and in its place, a sovereign man stands. Not because he conquered the world, but because he stopped letting the world conquer him.